When we, as followers of Jesus, faithfully partake of the bread and the cup, as Jesus himself commanded us to, when we do it the way, with the heart that he has taught us to, then every time we come together, every first day of the week that we break bread, is an opportunity for us to experience a little bit of heaven on earth. Just listen to what Jesus revealed to John in Revelation chapter 19, beginning with verse 6. Then I heard what seemed to be the voice of a great multitude, like the roar of many waters and like the sound of mighty peals of thunder, crying out, Hallelujah! For the Lord our God, the Almighty, reigns. Let us rejoice and exult and give him the glory. For the marriage of the Lamb has come, and the bride has made herself ready. It was granted her to clothe herself with fine linen, bright and pure, for the fine linen is the righteous deeds of the saints. And the angel said to me, Write this, Blessed are those who are invited to the marriage supper of the Lamb. This is what we're waiting for. When Jesus comes, and all of us who have put him on in baptism, all of us who have followed him faithfully, spending our lives becoming more like him each day as we live as part of his body, citizens of his kingdom, when we are all gathered together with him forever when he comes again. This is what we're waiting for, and it will be glorious. It will be beautiful. It will be joyous. It will be a celebration. It'll be like a wedding. That's what Jesus revealed to John. That's what we're looking forward to. That's what we're anticipating, to be a part of the marriage supper of the Lamb. So then appreciate that if that's what we're looking forward to, if that's what we're waiting for, longing for, that when we as Christians gather together to worship on Sunday, on the first day of the week, it's like the wedding rehearsal. It's like our time to start to experience right now what will be fully realized when Jesus comes again. It's our chance to go ahead and start to experience what it will be like when that union with Christ we are already enjoying as people that have been united with him is made complete. That's what our worship in general is supposed to be. That is what our partaking of the bread and the cup is meant to accomplish for us. Yet when we realize that that's what's going on there, that these actions that we take now are meant to draw us into anticipating what will be fully realized in eternity when Jesus comes, it might mean that we need to start thinking a little bit differently about worship, about the Lord's Supper. It might mean that we need to see what Jesus has revealed and ensure that our worship, ensure that our gathering at the Lord's table feels more like a wedding and less like a funeral. Because sometimes our worship services can be so heavily slanted to the negative, can be so focused on how Jesus died and it's all our fault, which is tragically true, but it's also incomplete. Because on Sunday morning, the day we gather, Jesus also rose. Jesus isn't dead. Jesus is alive. He's well. He's reigning. And while we need to feel the weight of his death as being the price that was paid to allow us to live in God's presence, we can't be so heavily weighted towards that we forget we get the joy of living in God's presence. Instead of our worship services needing to feel like a funeral, instead of our comments at the Lord's table sounding like we're delivering Jesus' eulogy, it needs to instead be more like the best man speech. It needs to instead be more like a celebration of a wedding where we recognize that while there has been such pain that he suffered to allow us to be here, we're here now with him. And that's a cause for joy. That's a cause for excitement because he is alive and with us now, and we know we are going to be with him forever. Because when we get the right vision for what worship, for what the Lord's Supper is meant to be, it will be a moment where in our present, we are united both with what's happened in the past and with what's going to happen in the future. It's an opportunity for us to look back at who Jesus is and what he's done, to look back and see how that culminated everything God was doing. How that fulfilled what he started when he rescued Israel from sin and death by bringing them out of slavery in Egypt. That it fulfills what the Passover had been looking forward to as just a shadow of. But it also allows us, as we reflect on what that means for us today, to be rescued. What that means for us today to be set free, to live new lives. To also look ahead. Ahead to how then we're going to live each day God gives us from that point forward, to how Jesus is going to come for us, and that union with him we're already enjoying is made perfect, complete, when sin and death and the chains that they try to tangle us up in are fully destroyed. Now, when we recognize the seriousness of all of that, how big it is that we get to worship, we do clean up nice, but not in the superficial way we so often focus, because oftentimes when we talk about dressing up for church, we're critiquing whether or not somebody's wearing a tie. But notice here the vision that Jesus gives us, that what matters is deeds, actions, words that we take that demonstrate a right relationship with God. That's how we dress up nice. So we make sure we clean up, we examine ourselves, we constantly try to be more like Jesus, but we recognize even then we're not earning our way into this wedding. He grants us that opportunity. He grants us the chance to be pure, even though we had already cost ourselves that. He allows us to experience his presence and to be able to look forward to that through eternity because of his great love for us. And not just us individually. Because while you can get married with just you, your spouse, and a justice of the peace, in a living room in the middle of the night, in a courtroom in private, the really fun, the really memorable weddings, aren't they when family and friends come together and celebrate? And that's what worship is intended to be, because that's what heaven is going to be. Heaven is going to be all of us from all around the world, from throughout time, coming together at one in God's presence and feeling joy, and our worship is meant to be a practice for that. So while there might be seasons where you find yourself needing to faithfully partake of the Lord's Supper in isolation, that's not actually what Jesus wants for you all the time. What he wants for you is the joy of gathering together with his people and sharing in the celebration. That's literally what communion is about. We're communing, we're connecting with Jesus, as well as communing and connecting with each other, everyone who is a part of his body. Isn't it amazing that Jesus used something so small, that he used something so simple as a bit of unleavened bread, as a drink of the fruit of the vine, to give us something that in worship can be so powerful? Accept his invitation. Participate in the marriage supper of the Lamb, not just in eternity, but right now. This Sunday, come to the table with your brothers and sisters, with the Lord who loves us all so much, and be blessed.